What? Hello, everyone. Welcome to Hashtag General, the show where eventually, at some point, I'll actually figure out a good way to introduce it. I'm your host, Logan Studley, and joining me, as always, is your other host, Chris Akamura. How you doing, Chris?
Tired, but I'm
Tired.
good. How are you, Logan?
I understand you're tired. I also feel tired, but I think you have more right to it than I do. uh,
Nonsense, Logan.
yeah,
This
just a
this year has taken its toll.
yeah. I think that's fair. Like I told you right when we first started chatting before the broadcast, James and I were like, "Didn't we do this like 3 days ago?" It just time is both fast and slow, and it's bloody annoying that it's that way. But you also have been on a completely different time zone for about a month now, haven't you?
Yeah, uh, about a month, yeah,
Yeah.
for Worlds. So, been an
So,
interesting dynamic.
yeah. Any details you want to share from Worlds, or just anything
No,
interesting this year? Or
tournament's super interesting. Pretty much as expected. There's not too much variance in terms of like who we thought would do well and who we didn't think would do well. I think like it's pretty straight. This year's been pretty straightforward, which has been good from like an analyst perspective. So for like my job and stuff like that, it makes me look smart because everything that's supposed to happen is happening. Um, but obviously maybe bad from like a casual perspective because there's no the
it's
big
predictable,
upsets.
so therefore it is
Yeah,
boring. Yeah, it's yeah, I get that, but I mean, one of the things, especially with any competitive activity, is eventually at some point you're going to have enough detailed information where you can more or less, not necessarily predict, but have a very, very good idea where you're going to be right 9 times out of 10.
right.
So,
And I think it's part of the problem. Well, not part of the problem, but like part of the thing of like this is the 10th Worlds. This is 10 years of this. I've been covering and interacting with this game almost every day for 10 years now. And like all these players and personalities and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, it for people like me that have been around for so long, like covering this has become pretty standard and like we understand this game at this point.
yeah.
So of course like it's like anything, right? Like there could be upsets or whatever, but most of the time we can pretty reliably figure out who the better team is. It's just a matter of whether they play like on the day. But again, for the most part, that's been happening this year. So
Yeah. I mean, I think that's going to be something, honestly, I think any time a competitive game from baseball to hockey to League of Legends, anytime I think you add an organizational effort to try to, be like, no, let's treat this seriously, I think that's going to just kind of be the end result
yeah,
where a team, but the thing too is, you see it all the time, a team could be amazing on paper, but not be able to actually deliver the results.
right.
So, I
But I
don't,
think by the time we get to Worlds, that's kind of been
yeah, it's,
hammered out, right? Like you understand,
yeah,
there's
exactly.
so much there's so much time like during a season, so where by the time Worlds hits, like you
Yeah.
have pretty good grasps of who these guys are, who these teams are.
And that's where I think the thing about the idea of like the team that's good on paper, but not necessarily able to deliver, you already know that by the time it hits the world stage.
Right.
So, oh,
I mean, to me, the thing that makes Worlds interesting is that the it is the international competition because these teams aren't playing each other. So the interesting thing to me, and like I think something like it's to me the most interesting part is just like the idea that cool, these teams have never played each other. They come from completely different styles. They come from regions with completely different metas. Like how do they mix? And like
yeah, it's
what are the comps between the two? So like uh top esports from China when they play I don't know, like TSM from the US, okay, what is the closest thing to top that TSM has seen over the year, and how do they react to it? And then where do we, like, what was the closest NA comparison to top esports? And like, where do we go from there?
Yeah,
And so then, like, finding those comparisons and like really being able to look at matchups through that lens is like super interesting to me.
I think
Um,
that's also one of the reasons why, to kind of go into a side tangent, why I've always enjoyed watching women's hockey during the Olympics, is you get to see players who are playing the game in a way that isn't necessarily going to be typical to what you expect if you watch NHL.
right,
Like the rules are going to be slightly different. The play is going to be like these are the top players. It's going to be a little more intense, especially when you have like teams like Canada and the United States going back and forth. It just it adds a dynamic to a game that you if you are familiar with it, it keeps you interested if it's not the same group of teams over and over and over again. Not that that's
right,
bad, but it just always I think makes me a little more interested in what's going on.
right. I have the same feeling towards FIBA basketball. The only problem with FIBA basketball is that the US is so dominant that like it doesn't matter at the end of the day.
Yeah,
Um, 'Cause
like
the
women's
talent,
hockey has that same problem. I think it's basically like the United States, Canada, and I think like Sweden has it. Like you get like the Nordic countries, Canada, and the United States, and outside of that, like women's hockey is kind of not as competitive, and it's just because it's not as well supported.
right? But yeah, like just I love seeing how the same game develops differently in different parts of the world,
Yeah.
depending on like which players they have, like what they're good at, and like all that kind of stuff. I think is really interesting. It's
Well,
just
I
seeing
think
how it develops.
really big side tangent, but this also reminds me of when we've talked about. I think it was Tekken, where discovering that I think it was Tekken in Pakistan,
Yeah,
where there was like this huge Tekken community in Pakistan. It was like everyone else in the world just somehow did not know it. And then all
yeah,
of a sudden, like Pakistani players start coming to the world stage and are just dominant.
yeah. Exactly what
And
happened.
that's, yeah, and that's fascinating because has, it means a game where you'd think it's been figured out. You realize all it takes is someone upsetting the known balance, upsetting the meta, and then everyone has to shift and adjust.
Right.
So, no, that's cool. I, of
Yeah,
course,
super interesting.
have been honestly, it's just as you put it, it's just like 2020 is dragging its toll, and I just feel like that's the thing. Because I mean, to not get into it at all, but I know you follow me on Twitter and probably have know very well that I am very I follow politics probably a little closely than is good for my sanity, and it's just these past 2 weeks have just been like this bizarre gauntlet of just ugh. It's just
Yeah,
like
it's
it's I'm ready for it to be done. Um,
yeah,
so
totally with you there.
so yeah. But I guess my only other thing, because I've been trying to sidetrack myself by reading a bit more, but I also, just as a quick update, we won't go too deep into it, but it kind of will help us segue into our first topic slightly because it's tech. I am now 2 parts shy of being able to do my new computer build. So
Oh,
yeah,
fancy.
so it's the 2 parts you need the most, the CPU and the GPU. But my I yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about that. I want to say probably the next episode, only because by that time I should ideally, fingers crossed, actually have everything. Because
That's super exciting.
yeah, 3070 should be on sale. I think Thursday. And then the whole thing I'm watching is Ryzen prices because depending on what happens with the 3600 or the 3700, I might pick up one of those, or I might just be like, you know what, I'll just eat the extra money or the extra cost and go to the 5600. But yeah, that's these this these next 2 weeks are very exciting for me. just from that perspective. But
Yeah, we this next like few weeks are gonna be insane because we have consoles coming out.
we have consoles, we have like AMD's graphics card. Um, the more information
Cyberpunk.
comes out, yeah, Cyberpunk. It's just it's gonna be a very if you're in the game tech space in any way, shape, or form, there is something going on that's just really exciting, and it's just kind of at this point, like I said, it's not much to talk about now, but 2 weeks from now, in between Christmas and then in between Thanksgiving and Christmas, oh boy, there's gonna be a ton to talk about. Um, but let's move on to tech. Let's just actually kind of dive into our one actual tech topic for this week. Uh,
Oh, well, okay, well,
well,
we'll dive into this topic, but I want to jump back. I don't know if we have a games topic this week, but I do want to talk about something that might interest James.
oh,
But
okay.
we'll move
We'll
on.
get to that when we get to games.
Yeah, go for it.
So iPhone 12. What were
Yep.
your thoughts? Have you looked into it at all, or is it just like
Uh,
you've done
I
the casual
have.
glance?
I've looked into it quite a bit. The MagSafe stuff I think is pretty interesting. I
Yeah,
think that it's like a pretty cool idea. The only issue is like I don't know how I feel about the strength of the magnets. I don't feel
yeah.
like they're necessarily strong enough to effectively do what I would want them to do. That makes
I guess it
sense.
depends on what you want them for. Are you thinking like I've heard a
Like,
couple? I think Belkin is making a MagSafe car holder, and that one I'd be concerned about.
yeah, I so like the big one to me that I was looking at that I was like, oh, this is a cool idea, and then the more I looked into it, the more I was like, this is weird or not working. Was the MagSafe wallet,
Yeah, that is like
w- where I was like, oh, that's really cool. And then I watched a tech review. I think it was Verge. I can't remember. I think it might have been Verge or Mac Rumors, but they did the thing where like trying to slide the phone into your pocket, the
oh, and then it
wallet
just
keeps catching on the pocket and then coming off.
that's not good.
And so like if you're not paying attention and you try to put your phone in your pocket, your wallet could just end up on the floor because it just doesn't it just catches.
Yeah, I've also heard that the wallet, which again is I think the MagSafe concept, like you, I think there's a lot of potential there. It's really dependent, again, like you said, on the strength of the magnets and what people make for it. But I remember reading about the wallet where it said if you tried to add more than 3 cards, it just doesn't work right. Like
Yeah.
you're not going to be able to fit in more than 3 cards.
Also my concern would be like magnetization of my cards.
Right. It's I looked at that and it was just like, oh man, because that means I could go from carrying like my wallet and my phone to just my phone. But then I was like, okay, let's like break it down. Like, what would that actually legitimately mean? Like my ID,
A card.
card, and like one other thing. It's just like, I don't really need more than like 3 cards on any given day, but that idea that I might have to like sit there and like switch out which is in the wallet is not necessarily like a highlight for me.
Sure.
Like, but yeah, I thought the wallet was fascinating. I know also as someone who has been like I'm still rocking the iPhone SE Gen 1. I don't know if you could actually see that on camera. But
So does the mini interest you?
yeah, like it's one of those things where this is the product that I never really expected Apple to actually deliver. And it was so I never was waiting for it, but I'm really glad that it ended up arriving when it did because this is around the point where I know my iPhone SE is really approaching end of life. Like I'm surprised it got the latest version of iOS, to be totally honest. It's not so much an issue now, but it was an issue when pre-COVID, when I was commuting, where there wasn't enough battery power to actually get me through the day on one charge on my phone. It just
Sure.
couldn't do it. So I was like, I was in the need to upgrade space anyway. And it's just like they show off the mini, and I was like, oh, this is for people like me who really like the iPhone 5 size. Thought all of the
Right.
iPhone 10 era phones were just too big, and it's just like, oh, this is it. Like, as much as I'm interested in like the camera aspects of the iPhone 12 Pros, the mini is the one I would want to carry around.
Sure. Fair.
So yeah, the mini definitely is my next iPhone. Hands down. There's got to be someone will have to do a review at some point of the mini specifically and have to say it's garbage and like break down why you shouldn't get the 12 mini instead of the 12 before
What
I'd
I've
even think about
heard,
it.
I've, the things that I've looked at is like, I guess it's just not good value tech.
Yeah,
But I mean, like, if it comes down to form factor, then I don't. It's not like a game breaker in terms
right.
of like how under quote unquote underpowered it is in comparison to the other ones.
Yeah,
But
my understanding is the only real major difference between the 12 mini and the 12 Pro, the 12 is because the screen is smaller, the amount of pixels it just has fewer pixels. So there's some
right,
like display stuff happening in the background that Apple is doing that because they have to scale it essentially to fit that screen size. And but that's really the only actual difference I've heard about on a tech level, like on a technical spec level, between an iPhone 12 mini and an iPhone 12 is just all in the display in terms of
yeah.
resolution. And that's
The
about it.
the difference that I've heard is just like not difference. The main argument that I've heard is just like the price difference isn't that big. So if you're gonna get one, just get the regular one, not the mini. It's like,
Yeah.
and I was like, I get that, but like also, if form factor is more important to you, like, you might as
Yeah.
well just like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not a huge deal.
Yeah, exactly. If you were again, if you were like me and you just loved the iPhone 5S form factor, uh this is kind of a no-brainer. I think anyone making an argument that you should get the 12 instead because the price difference is negligible, I think that only makes sense. Like you said, it only would make sense if the form factor is not of importance to the
Right.
person. Because, like,
I
for
think it's
me,
less about price and more
yeah,
about like form factor.
yeah, because the other downside I've heard is because it's smaller, the battery is also smaller. So
Sure.
you can't go as far. The charge doesn't take you as far, but I'm not overly worried by that.
Yeah. Again, like, I don't think it's too big of an issue. I don't know about you though. I do prefer the squared off design.
The the one they're using now, the
Yeah, I
yeah, I
like it
do
a
too.
lot.
I do too. Like like I it's kind of like my theme with the size of the iPhone. It's just like I always preferred the design aesthetic of the iPhone 5S, which they kind of brought back with the iPad Pro with the
Yeah.
generation I have, and then they're bringing it again to iPhone. And it's like by happenstance with no intent on my part. It's like I skipped all the stuff in iPhone that where their design choices didn't align with what I wanted. And it was never intentional. It just happened that way. Uh
Yeah. I I've always loved that squared off design. And then I had like I think I had iPhone 3 SGE was my first iPhone. And then I skipped the 4 and then I ended up getting a 5 because I loved the square up design, and then that's what also remember when they had the weird aspect ratio where
yeah.
they had the super long
Yeah.
like remember how long the 5 was?
It was crazy long. Cuz I went 4 to 5S and then to SE. So I basically have used the same like design of an iPhone
Yeah, that's
since like
awesome.
for like the past, oh god, like 7 years at least, I've had an iPhone that is in this like the exact same form factor. um but yeah, it's like I'm glad that they're going back to this, because as much as I never didn't like the iPhone designs that they had with the iPhone 10, but they were definitely not what I would have chosen. So it's kind of, it's just nice to sit there and be like, yeah, there's nothing here design wise where I feel like there's a sacrifice being made um on, whatever design aesthetic they were trying to go for with the current gen. So yeah, the iPhone 12 like was, yeah, like hitting off all the check marks of things that I was not gonna sit there and not buy an iPhone for, but would have been like, man, I wish it would go back to like the iPhone at 5 5S style, or with how the design is, or like a smaller form factor. It just so happens that this is the generation where it happened. But yeah, but we're also, again, it's to the thing we've said before with previous phone launches, is we're seeing a lot more iteration rather than outright revolution.
Right.
But that's where I think things like MagSafe really pique my interest, is because it is something that could change how we use the phone without actually having to completely reinvent the phone the way the
Right.
original iPhone did.
I also do appreciate that it is at least an attempt at something new.
Yeah.
Like
Um,
it's not just them resting on their laurels. It is them trying to do something different.
yeah. Something
Um,
that like arguably makes the experience better.
right.
Because like to get down right to Qi charging, it was always like you have to line it up exactly. Half the reason why their air power was a huge debacle was their pitch had been, you could put the
Drop
device
it
down
anywhere.
on any point and it would charge. And that was half the reason why air power was enticing to a lot of people, is because you have to line up Qi perfectly to get it to charge correctly. MagSafe just eliminates that problem, because you just boop, stick it on and it's going to be lined up correctly because of the magnets, and you don't have to
Right.
worry about, did I line up my phone correctly so it charges overnight. Then there's also the thing I think that I personally find kind of interesting, is there's no way MagSafe is going to work with other devices, but it's still a Qi charger. So it isn't like it's going to be able to magnetically attach to your Samsung phone, but someone with a Samsung phone could actually use the Qi charging capabilities of a MagSafe, which
Yeah.
is
I
which
just
is
I think it's
which
I
is
think it's so
great.
funny though. It made me laugh because as soon as I saw it, because we'd heard rumors about the MagSafe, and I was like, cool, how are they going to do it?
Yeah.
And in my head, I was imagining like I don't know why. I was imagining like because they make them now, like a lightning port in the bottom that just is flat and it has a magnet on it, and then the cable just like zips
Yeah,
to it.
exactly. That was my thought too when I first heard Apple's exploring MagSafe for iPhone. I was just like immediately thought of like the like traditional MagSafe connectors from
Yeah.
older
So
Macs,
like
and I was just like,
that's in my head, right?
yeah, I'm like, this
So
makes no
then when
sense. Whatever. Like they could
yeah,
do
and
whatever. That's,
so
I'm not gonna care.
so then when they showed that, I was laughing because I don't know if you have you used an Apple Watch charger because it's the same fucking thing. It's just a puck
Yeah, I haven't used an
that
Apple
goes in
Watch
the
charger, but
bottom.
it is essentially the same thing. But it
And
doesn't use Qi.
I was like, are you fucking kidding me? I was like, because it's just a big Apple. To me, it looked like just a big Apple Watch charger, and I was like, oh, all
Yeah,
right,
but yeah, I'm interested to see how MagSafe plays out, because it could go one of two ways. It could become the thing that everyone uses, or it could be the touch bar, the thing no one uses.
the touch bar.
Very interesting concept. Like, on paper, that's a fantastic idea. The keyboard will adjust based off what you're playing or doing or using. But yeah,
Remember the
well,
original Razor blade? Do you remember that?
Was that the one where it was like the Razor that was all touchscreen?
It wasn't touchscreen. It was an LED keyboard. So it had buttons, but each button was an LED screen
Oh God, yes, I
that you
remember
could
that.
program to do different things and look different. So depending on what you were doing, the keyboard would change and layout would change.
Well, that's essentially what the Elgato Stream Dock does too.
Yes, exactly the
Um,
same thing.
the problem
Exactly the
is
same tech.
the problem is the touch bar had no physical buttons, so you had to like you couldn't just do it by feel.
Yeah.
When
To
if
me,
you
the
can
most
touch
irritating
type,
thing to me was the escape button on
yeah,
it.
I think they finally. I think with the when they did, doesn't the 16-inch MacBook Pro, like the newest one, when they got rid of the bad keyboard, didn't they add the escape key back
Yeah,
in?
it's
Yeah,
back
it
in.
yeah, getting rid of the escape key was a dumb move. Um, but yeah, I can see makes it going the way of Touch Bar, but I don't think it will.
It all depends on third parties and what they
Yeah,
can make.
because if third-party uh, companies start making like again very interesting things to take advantage of MagSafe, it could completely change how it's handled. Because otherwise, right now, all we have is a wallet, a charger, and cases, which
I will say this disappointed me. I am sad that it has lightning still. I want a USB-C, but continue.
I don't see them getting rid of Lightning anytime soon. Not on the phone. Their rationale, whether you agree with it or not, for putting USB C into iPads but not into phones is that the iPad Pro and now the iPad Air, you're able to do enough computer stuff that they want it to have a standard computer port.
No,
So
I
that way you
get
could,
it.
but yeah, I honestly think, and seems to be the general opinion of other people who follow Apple, MagSafe is actually predicting a future where the iPhone has no port.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to see a port free iPhone and never see a USB C iPhone.
I can see that.
So I think also the USB C port is thicker than
Yeah,
Lightning. And I can see
very
that,
slightly.
yeah, and I can see that being another thing that they don't want to add in a thicker part
No,
because
yeah,
they're
I
Apple.
can see all this stuff. I just think like to me, remember we've also heard that the next the design language of the iPhone is getting to where no ports, no buttons.
Yeah.
I was like, that's super interesting.
Well, I mean, even some buttons, like I think it was the iPhone 8, the home button wasn't an actual button. They used
Yeah,
haptic
is a
feedback to
touch.
simulate it.
Yeah.
So I think I think that's Apple's plan all along is to eventually get to the point where all of the buttons aren't actually buttons, but they're simulated. Because I think they do the same thing with the AirPods.
Yeah, there's no buttons on the AirPods. There's a touch
So
with haptic.
yeah, any point of failure, like any physical point of failure, is something Apple is is like essentially trying to remove from the phone.
Dude, that waterproof rating would be insane.
I know. It's like, let's go
How do
swimming.
you
Like,
how do you do speakers? How do you do speakers no holes?
what it is, I know they developed this with the watch, and it wouldn't shock me at all if they are planning to do
Is it the
something.
is it where the watch spits out the water?
Yeah, where it like emits like I think a low level frequency and it just like spits out the water. I wouldn't
Yeah.
be shocked if the iPhone got like a actual you can take it swimming rating. I would expect it to do that. But you know, the moment they do that, you're gonna get a bunch of underwater photography at a iPhone presentation.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's we've said before, like the product line is mature, and everything that's happened over the past few years is just, you know, they're good devices. So, yay. Don't really have much more to go over on this topic unless you do.
No, I think we're good.
All right, let's move on to games. So, this first topic was originally on the show note for last week, but you were unable to join us. So, I wanted to hold it to this broadcast because I know you might have more information than I was going to quickly glean, and I wanted to get your thoughts around all of the hubbub around CD Projekt Red's crunch for Cyberpunk. And I think one of the reasons why I wanted to hear more is from my experience in production, and I know you've done it with with live events that you've been at too. Like there's going to be days where you're working like a 12, 14-hour day. I know when you're on when I worked production, it wasn't uncommon. Like a 12-day was a short day.
Right.
But those would only be for 3 weeks. And then it would go to, you know, normal, quote, normal being like a 10-hour day. Still a long day, but it wasn't like you would get like a 60-hour week. You might push 70, and depending on what department you're in, if you're like a department head, you might push 80 in a production. But it feels like when they talk about crunch in gaming, it's not like only for weeks, it's for months, and 80 hours would be short.
Yeah.
Is that what's
I think
happening with CD Projekt Red, or?
as far as I know, no. So the game's gold now, obviously.
Mhm.
The crunch that was happening with CD Projekt Red was like the final push kind of a thing,
Yeah,
which I don't think people understood. I think they just heard
they heard
uh
crunch and they
the
flipped.
crunch and they flipped, and I think the idea is there's a difference between crunch and us in the there's a difference between like what Red Dead was doing and what Rockstar was doing versus what uh CD Projekt Red was doing. I think every company, I think every industry, like you're saying, uh
Yeah, like
has a like an element of crunch, an element of like last minute push, like hey, let's go, right? To like the final leg of your project or whatever it is.
yeah, because I've
I
worked.
think there's like an expectation there,
Yeah,
but
because I, as someone who's worked events that have been broadcast live, like you don't work an 8-hour day that day. No one works an 8-hour day that day. Like you couldn't get the work done in an 8-hour day if you're doing like a broadcast that's going live at 8 p.m. Eastern and you're even on the West Coast. That means you're doing it at 5. You still have been there probably since like 6 a.m. So like the show's going live, you're already almost to your 12th hour. Like, and that's why I wanted to ask you what you had heard, was because I was hearing this and I'm like, we haven't heard anything from about crunch with Cyberpunk or CD Projekt Red until now. And I just was like, I can't sit here and grab my pitchfork and torch because it sounded to me like, I'm like, I wanted to know because I'm like, if they're saying crunch, but they're working like a 70-hour day, but they've only been doing, or day, 70-hour week, but they've only been doing it for like 2 weeks as they're approaching gold. Like, I'm going to not sit there and be like, bad CD Project Red. I'm going to be more like, no, just, that's every project everywhere, any industry. Like, when you're down to the wire like that, you're going to be putting in a couple more hours here or there to get it out the door.
yeah. But again, and I do want to clarify. I don't think it's a good thing.
No.
I don't think it's a good thing to assume that anywhere. But this is a more normal thing that doesn't just happen in the games industry. Games industry only thing is like the 6 month crunch.
Yeah. Yeah, if this had
to
been the
make a
6 month
deadline,
crunch, then
right?
that's
Like there's a difference between getting the last minute push to get it out the door and the full year long crunch to like make a deadline.
yeah, because my thing too, especially when they're like everyone was jumping on with CD Projekt Red over the past month, I was just like, you don't delay a game from April to November and then like are in crunch mode that entire time. Like that, like I could see a game maybe doing that, but it just I don't get why. Like your game is in a worse position than in April, and everything we had heard in April when they did the delay hadn't been like, oh my god, we're like missing XYZ. It was more like they wanted to take the time to like make it perfect, rather
Right.
than the game is incomplete.
Right.
So, but you're right. Like this, we shouldn't accept working crazy hours like this as normal or acceptable. It's just this is a less egregious case of it. Because like I also am one of those people who thinks the from the film TV side. I remember once talking to on a show I worked, talking to a location scout who had worked for people like Ridley Scott, or but he'd also worked on a shoot for Clint Eastwood. And his comment was, the moment you realize you can actually complete a film on time and on budget, and you don't have to work a 12, 13, or 14-hour day, you realize it's all bullshit, was his comment. And I think he's right. Like, there's a reason why there's a push for like French, the French lunch or French hour. I forget the exact term, where instead of working a 12-hour day where you work 6 hours, you might get a half-hour break if it's catered, an hour break for lunch if it's not, and then another 6 hours. You schedule a 10-hour day. You provide catering throughout that entire period, but you don't have like an official lunch break, because the truth is, and I'm sure you know this, Chris, and I know James knows this too, there will be periods of time where an entire department is just sitting there waiting for some other department to get something done. Might as well let them go get lunch.
Yeah.
So I think every industry, if they somehow go, we need a 12, 14, 16-hour day, it's like, that should happen. Like, I won't sit there and be like, oh, that can't ever happen, but that shouldn't be the norm. That should be the very, very rare exception.
Right. Well, I'm with you completely. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think the issue is that like it was such a conversation, and CJ Project Red had a like they were one of the people that took a stand against crunch
Yeah.
when all the stuff with Rockstar was going on. And so for like any kind of idea of crunch, I think people just jumped on them
Yeah.
of being hypocritical or being, you know, whatever, without really understanding the difference.
Yeah. Because my whole argument would be, if you are Rockstar and you are making your employees work 80-hour work weeks for 6 months straight, you need to hire more people. You're not in crunch mode. You are
In catch-up mode.
understaffed.
Yeah.
That's just what it is. You are understaffed. And if any of these companies would argue we can't afford to hire more people, how much are you paying in overtime? Like, don't tell me you can't afford to pay more people. Like, after 60 hours, you're pay like, at least in California, if you hit
Also,
the 60-hour point,
how many copies of GTA 5 have you sold?
right. Don't tell me you don't have the money. Like, I don't believe you. Like, I know it's not true. Like, you can hire more staff. And CD Projekt Red probably also may have been in a position where they should have looked at hiring a freelancer or a couple freelancers here or there, so they could have avoided it. But for all we know, they did, and they couldn't.
Right.
Like, it's criticism, should it be thrown at them? Probably a little, just because it's like everyone could always do more to avoid crunch. But the mass CD Projekt Red is in crunch mode. It just like again, like I said and you've said, it's like now, like of course they're in crunch mode. It's like
Yeah.
we're a month from like gold. It's not like we're hearing them being in crunch mode again. Like very different story if this broke in April. But yeah, no, I that's why I wanted to ask you because I knew you would have more info than I would because I just again was just like this sounds almost normal to me, to a healthy
Yeah.
level compared to everyone else.
Yeah. Again, like, and I think when you're in that kind of environment, there is a level of excitement to like,
Yeah,
we're so close. Let's get this out the door. Like,
exactly. I
and we're
know.
to where it's not a stressful thing, it's more of an exciting thing.
I know
Um,
full well when I've worked on projects where I have a stake in it beyond just I got hired for the job. Uh, yeah, I put in more time. Uh, like I honestly could see this happening less because of a mandate and more because, just general excitement that you're that close to being finished.
yeah,
Because I know that's what I would be doing. Like I know in film school I would have a essentially finished cut of a film that I had to present the next day, and I'd have it done at like 10 p.m. I'd keep working on it till 3 a.m. Just fine tuning and tweaking whatever I could because I could take the time and make it better, or at least
right.
what I thought would make it better. And I had it like that's gonna happen anytime there's a creative endeavor.
Right.
But let's move on. Do you want to? You mentioned you wanted to bring something up that you wanted to talk to James when it came to games. So,
Oh, okay. So here, so because I was going to talk about it in like the what we're playing section, but I
ah,
completely spazzed on it. Um, so I don't know how. So for me, this has been all over my social for the past month. It's something that I was going to talk about last week. Or 2 weeks ago. I was super into it 2 weeks ago. Um, but have you guys heard about Genshin Impact at all?
No.
no, James, have you?
No, I haven't. No, what kind of game is it?
So Genshin Impact is a Chinese game, and it's interesting because we talked about Chinese games about what 2 months ago,
Yeah, about how they're
and
very
so
mobile, but we were talking about Monkey King.
right. So it is for mobile, it is for PC, it's for PS4, and it's coming to Switch. But it is cross save, so all work seamlessly together. So like what I've been doing is playing on PC, and then when I go to like turning it off, and then when I go to bed, I log in, I play a little more while I'm like laying in bed, and then go to bed, stuff like that, right? So it works really well. Um, Cross save,
That's really cool.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, so it is the joke, and the joke that everyone's been kind of going with that I've been laughing at is people are calling it Breath of the Waifus because it's essentially Breath of the Wild with anime characters.
Oh
Um,
God, the moment you said that, I think I've seen ads for this game now that you mention it.
so it is, and it looks like a Breath of the Wild knockoff. It really does because it's the same mechanics. It's the same like
God,
elementals.
I think I
It's the
have seen
same.
the ads for this game because that is exactly how I would have described
Okay,
those
so
ads.
but the thing is that it is extremely polished. There's a lot of systems there that are really deep that are working a lot better than they do in Zelda. There's a lot of stuff that does better than Zelda. There's a lot of the combat's a ton of fun. The characters are a ton of fun to play with. Every character is super unique to play with. Um, Obviously the way you get so think of Zelda, but uh, there's characters that you could use, and you have a party of four, and you're actively hot swapping between them. So like if I have a character that does water abilities and a character that does electric abilities, like like powers or whatever, if I make all of my enemies wet, and I can swap to my electric character, and then finish them off and like it does a combo because they're all wet, right? So it boosts, it amplifies the damage with the electricity, stuff like that, right? So you have that kind of element going on that's a lot more fun. Super super interesting stuff. Story's kind of whatever. But, I mean, you're playing it mainly for the exploration and like the collecting stuff. Um, the way you get characters is kind of the bad part because it's the gotcha mechanic. So it's the cool. Let's pull this orb and hope I get weapons or characters or whatever.
Okay.
But the game does a pretty good job of like giving you a ton of free stuff. So like just beating a camp. So like James knows from playing Breath of the Wild, like camps are everywhere.
Yeah.
So like enemy camps everywhere. So like beating a camp gives you 10 of the crystals, whatever, to open an orb. So 160 orbs or 160 crystals is one orb, which is, and then 1600 is 10 orbs, and the 10 orbs gives you a guaranteed 4-star drop. So I mean, if you play for an hour, you'll get a 10-star drop. So it's not like it's terrible. It's pretty friendly.
Cool.
But like, you know, you can buy to like speed it up, whatever, right? But like,
I like it or appreciate. I guess the best way to say it, I appreciate it if a game has a free to play mechanic. That doesn't penalize you for not paying.
right. So full disclosure, I haven't played enough of it to hit the wall yet, because obviously I think there's going to be a wall. But once, from what I've heard, you hit the wall, and then after a while, you just have to wait longer to do stuff. Because you hit the point where you hit like the free to play wall, but it's not that bad.
Yeah,
what I've heard.
I think, from my experience with the free to play wall, essentially, that sounds like how a lot of MMOs, when they went free to play, handled it, where it wasn't that you were necessarily locked out of content, but
it just takes longer, right?
It either takes longer or like I'm thinking like the big one for me would be I think Star Wars you level up slower. Lord of the Rings Online you level up you level up slower, but they also have it where like the entire map is still explorable, but you won't be able to like pick up quests in areas you haven't unlocked through like a purchase of some sort. But it's also possible to like earn the currency quote you need to unlock it in game.
Okay, that's fair. So Genshin Impact's kind of the same way, where like you level up each one of your characters, and like you have to equip, you know, gear and spells and level them up and weapons, all kinds of stuff like that. So like it's a ton of fun. I'm having a blast with it. Combat's great. Exploration's just like Zelda.
Yeah, James.
Traversal's just like Zelda.
How far did you get into Breath of the Wild? I see you play it every once in a while.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little hard to tell, like, my progress, I guess. I mean, I'm not there might be some sort of, like, percentage bar. I can't remember. But I think I'm probably in the first 50% still. It's been a while since I played, but I don't think I've... It feels like there's a lot more to see.
Right. But yeah, James, I would give it a shot if you're interested.
Cool.
It's awesome. It's a ton of fun.
All right. Our next topic is the one that took Twitter by storm. God, this whole thing is just, there's a whole lot to unpack here, because I think the big thing is the argument the guy was made, to give everyone, if you aren't familiar with what happened, a game developer for, I think, is he still at Ubisoft or?
No, it says Google Stadia on his LinkedIn or on his profile. I forget what game company he was working with, but Google acquired them and put them on Stadia. So he is I think Ubisoft Montreal, or I forget what it is, but he is a game dev for like a
Yeah,
game
he's
studio.
Montreal-based game dev.
Yeah,
Made an argument that game streamers should have to pay game publishers to license the right to stream the video game, or they would have to engage in some form of revenue sharing in order to stream the game.
yeah.
Again,
Um,
first off, and Chris, I know you could talk about this a lot too. This, for the best way to look at game streaming from a game publisher perspective is earned media, which is, like I said on Twitter, fancy PR speak for publicity you didn't have to pay for. It's every game seems to have some form of marketing plan now around streaming and enabling people to stream. His idea would just kill that.
right. I think it just comes back to like I I understand his point, but it comes down to like a huge, massive disconnect to like what games media does and like what streaming does. Because
Yeah,
his main argument, like the more you dive into it, his main argument was that the like game streaming only helps the streamer and doesn't really benefit the developer.
which is as someone who has literally bought a ton of games just because I watch people stream it, I'm gonna call bullshit.
Yeah, it's super wrong. A lot of people bring up Among Us as
Yeah.
like the number one
Well,
example.
Fall Guys is also another example. Like in the past few months, we have two examples of where streaming really helped a game explode.
Yeah. So yeah, I think like all that stuff's gigantic.
Yeah,
And I
where
think like his main points were just so wrong
yeah
that
the way the game streaming like system has essentially developed, his entire idea would completely undermine its existence. Where I think people should be wary of someone within a game talking about this is there where people like me really paid attention to it had been the idea that, oh, they need to license it, and it's on some level like there is a kernel of truth there in terms of licensing, where and James, I would say from my experience in working in production, and I wonder if you would say the same thing, if we were working on something for, say, a broadcast channel, there's no way in hell we wouldn't get written permission from a developer or publisher to broadcast content from that game.
Yes, we would.
He was nodding, and I was just staring at him. And I think that's where it's important to realize where something like this should be seen as problematic is on some legal standing. A game developer could say, in order to stream our game, you need to get our permission to play it. It's
Like
just,
the developers are completely in the right here. It just is. It's like a bad idea
Yeah.
to enforce your rights in this case.
yeah, which is why terms of service and or in some cases developer websites will explicitly state you can stream our game. It's because
yeah.
to go into copyright, and this is what ran into problem that Star Trek fan film ran into trouble is under copyright law, a company is compelled to protect their intellectual property. Failure to do so can be seen by a court as abandonment of the copyright. So, fan films, fan fiction, and now game streaming all exist in this space where it doesn't make sense for the people who hold the intellectual property rights to go after anyone, because in the case of fan films and fan fiction, you're just antagonizing your core base of people who will buy your stuff. And in-game streaming, it's now your marketing ploy. But this is where his thing, I say, is people shouldn't have just write it off and should have actually looked at it with a bit of concern, or like concern in the sense of you should understand what's going on, not necessarily a concern over whether or not you should stream. You should stream. Just, you're fine. No one's really going to come after you if you stream their game, because for them, it's earned media. But
yeah, I think the best example that I heard was someone brought up the idea of like, cool, you bought a guitar. Now this guitar manufacturer is going to charge you a license to be able to play it at a concert. Like, that was the example that someone I saw, and I was like, yeah, that's kind of the same thing here.
It's not, sadly. It's the same thing about, remember a couple months ago where that PTA board in Berkeley got in trouble because they played The Lion King at a school event that was ticketed. So people had bought admission to the event and they happened to screen the movie there. The reason why Disney had to go after them was because it was a ticketed event. Playing Lion King in like a classroom setting for education is protected under fair use. However, you do not have the right, as someone who bought, say, a Blu-ray copy of The Lion King, to do whatever you want with it. What you have actually technically bought in the eyes of the law is the right to play that copy of The Lion King within the privacy of your own home. You don't actually own a copy of The Lion King. You just own the right to play it within your home.
But I think there's also an argument to be had for games as a medium being extremely different from like any kind of traditional media. And I think it makes it a little more different.
I think it makes it harder to like adjust, because especially with streaming games, it isn't just someone broadcasting the game out to the world, even though you can. More often than not, there is some form of personality attached. Either someone's camera will be as part of the stream.
Sure, but even then, it's not even just broadcasting a thing. Like, your gameplay experience is vastly different and individualized to that whoever's playing.
Like you're saying, like the copyright can't claim your particular experience of the game, like the player aspect. It makes it not completely like a movie where it's just the one thing all the time.
It's not passive, right?
Yeah,
it's not passive. So like the way that I play a game is completely different from the way that like you play a game. And so the viewing experiences of watching me play a game versus watching you play a game, even if it's the same game, could be vastly different. And so I think like when you're talking about something, like I forget copyright law, something is you have to like alter or
the
personalize
transformative aspect.
Right.
That is where fair use comes into play.
Sure. But it's designed to be transformative, so
yeah, here's where I would say the transformative thing might kick in would be, because I think one of the best times I've had in terms of like fighting games was when you sat me and Jeff down and basically walked us through, here's what you do, here's what it does on screen, so that way we could learn like the in-depth mechanical aspect of the game. If you if you made a gameplay tutorial around that, where you were showing like, say, here's the motion you do with your control, this is what happens on screen, where you're explaining that deeper functionality of the game, I think you might be able to make an argument. The court might disagree, but I think you have a very solid argument that you have provided a transformative aspect, because the content you are making, while it is, yes, dependent on the game, it isn't just the game itself. And the problem you'd run into, even though everyone's experience within a game is going to be different, it was still programmed to function in that way. You're still playing something as it was designed. It just might not be that's how anyone expected you to do it. That's where the transformative aspect is not going to necessarily be in your favor. It's the same reason why when Campo Santo did the copyright strikes on the Firewatch videos done by PewDiePie, why PewDiePie really didn't have any recourse. It's because, yeah, he might have been on screen and it might have been his gameplay, but it was like you take away the game from that stream and you really don't have anything. Whereas your guitar, you could pick up a different guitar and play the same song that you've created.
I would make the argument though that you could say the same thing of like you could just switch games and like people are still gonna watch and like the content's gonna be pretty similar. It depends on the streamer. Like people are there for the streamer and the streamer is the one that sets the content.
Yeah, I know that's because I will watch some streamers specifically because I like them and they play games I do like. So yes, I know from the audience perspective, the streamer themselves is a draw, but I think the best example of this is actually reaction videos on YouTube where someone plays the trailer, but they have like a video of themselves reacting to it in the corner, but like the entire video is just the trailer. That's
Sure,
not a
but
transformative
again,
experience.
I don't think that's the same thing because again, that's more of a passive thing.
I think my thing though is I don't think the law would agree with you. Like the law would have to change in order for that to apply.
I mean, what really matters is like, what are the terms of the license agreement that you like agree to by opening the game package or whatever, you know, like those kind of weird rules
like,
where it's like
so,
by playing this game, you consent to this huge list of things, which might include like, hey, you are giving away your right to your game experience. Maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, if those don't exist though, you don't have the same protection.
Most games now have streaming clauses in there. Like, yeah, you're good.
Yeah. But the reason they did that was because if they didn't, they would have had to essentially act on their copyright and just start going after everyone. Because now by putting it in there, they can say, oh, no, it's allowed within the limits of our game. We don't have to go out and sue them to enforce our copyright. But the thing I would say here is another reason why if someone was sitting there going, I'm interested in streaming, do I need to worry about this? I would say, don't worry about it. Even though I'm saying the law isn't necessarily on your side, the reason I'd say don't worry about it is, to your argument, Chris, the court might agree with you and disagree with me. And no publisher, no developer, no Hollywood studio, no one in that space wants to get told that they don't actually have the right there, because then a lot of the control that they feel they have might go away. No one wants to upset the status quo because you don't want to lose the right to stream because that will impact your livelihood. They don't want you to lose the right to stream either because that could impact their ability to sell the game. The mess, as much as it is a mess right now, no one's going to change it. No one wants to upturn the apple cart because it's currently working to everyone's favor. It was like my thing with, I mentioned to this you on Twitter with the GIF. Yes, technically, when you GIF something from The Simpsons, you don't have the copyright to that GIF. That is still now held by Disney. But the internet, people, you can't control it. You can't tame it. But you can take advantage of it. And I think a best example of this would be, we were playing Dungeons and Dragons yesterday over Discord with friends, and someone did an action that reminded me of the fighting polar bears from His Dark Materials. I found a GIF, and what's on that GIF? The HBO logo and the His Dark Materials logo. That's how these guys compete with that, is that they embrace it rather than fight against it. Because honestly, none of them wanted to go to court. Really. Because streamers don't want to lose, the developers don't want to lose. Everyone would lose in that court case, no matter how it went.
Yeah. No, I totally get it.
So ultimately, this is all academic.
But also, Don't listen to the Google Stadia guy.
Yeah, don't listen to that guy. Because here's what will happen. If he ever got his wish with a game he released and said, you have to license my game and share revenue, no one's going to do it. It's not going to go for you, guy. It's not going to happen.
No,
The
he's
ship
had
has
some
sailed.
terrible takes.
You have a
So.
horrible take, but
No, he's had horrible takes in general.
yeah, a lot of them. But yeah, there's a huge misunderstanding over fair use and copyright law on the internet, and I saw a lot of people kind of delving into it here. So that's why I had my crazy long Twitter thread. But yeah, don't worry about it. Stream away, guys. Stream away. Because Lord knows when Nintendo tries to stop you, it actually doesn't go well for Nintendo. Or Persona 5.
No.
Yeah.
Sad times.
So let's move on. Let's talk a bit about Star Wars, because Lord knows we're going to be talking about this incessantly for the next few months. Because Mandalorian, Friday? I want to say it's Thursday or Friday. We get new episodes.
Thursday night, Friday morning.
Oh man, I'm thinking about doing a rewatch. Have you watched the latest? I think they had like a 30-second teaser.
Yeah, it was
a week
on
ago?
the football. It was for the football game or basketball.
Yeah,
I'm so hyped.
I am very hyped.
It looks so good, dude.
It looks so good. I actually think this teaser, it soothed some of the concerns I know you and I both had voiced at one point of we didn't want this to become the Ahsoka and Sabine show, now featuring Baby
Yes.
Yoda. And his comment about we need to go out and find Mandalorians like sets up why he would run into them
Yeah.
in an organic matter, and I don't think they're going to be a fixture. I think my hope and gut instinct that they were going to be like a cameo, not the thing, I think this kind of leads to that, or lends some credence to that. Could be wrong,
Sure.
but I saw it. That's how I took that line of I need to go find more Mandalorians so I can find his clan type thing. But yeah, I'm
Right.
hyped. So hyped for this.
Yeah, it looks super cool. I'm very excited. The parts where they have the speeders, the stormtroopers on the speeders, like got me so excited. And it's a thing where I know they talked so much about the volume,
Yeah.
and like it's such a huge push for them. And you're seeing sort of the fruits of the labor of like just them getting more and more used to using it.
Yeah.
Because some of these shots look incredible, and you're
I
like,
know.
they shot this on a set camera with like in a room.
Well, I mean,
Which-
it's like when we watched that Unreal Engine demo for like Unreal 5 or Unreal Engine
Yeah.
5, where you and I both are kind of just like, ugh. Game engines now can look so photorealistic that I, honest to God, if I hadn't seen some of the behind the scenes footage, I would not have believed a lot of the shots were on the volume.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most impressive thing about it is it isn't just that look at these landscapes. They look real. And that is, I think, the other very impressive thing is it's not just that they've figured out the best way to handle the volume. It's just that the volume means that these fantastical places look like you can literally reach out and touch them, and you don't get the weird green screen effect. It doesn't look like they shot it on a green screen, even though that's effectively what they did.
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing too. So that aside, I think it looks super cool. Very excited. I'm confused on like how much Cara Dune and Grief Cargo we saw
Yeah.
because as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, the entire first season, you never leave the Mandalorian. Right?
Yeah.
Like
I
he is
think
he's in every scene, or he is everything is
Everything's
around
from
him,
his
right?
viewpoint.
Right. So when you have end of last season, they left,
No, that's not
right?
true. I just saw an exception. I think the
What?
only other time we see something not from the perspective of the Mandalorian, it's when we've seen it from the perspective of Baby Yoda, and we do see that in the episode where they break out the guy from the New Republic prison ship, because the
Oh,
droid
right,
on
right,
the ship starts looking for Baby Yoda.
right, right, right. Okay, cool. Yeah, 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 you're right.
But
So, but it's between those two, right? Like
yeah,
it doesn't ever leave those two. So the end of season one, it's Mandalorian Baby Yoda leaving whatever planet that was, right? And then Cara Dune stays behind with Greef Karga.
yeah.
So there's scenes in the trailer that just have those two in it, and I was like, are they gonna have like spin-off moments where those two are doing stuff? I was like, I don't know if I
I
want
did
that.
notice that too,
I was like, I don't
and
know if I want that. But like,
my entire thought around that was, if that's what happens, my personal guess is at some point, because he goes back, like, essentially to meet up with them again in the last little teaser we saw. I have a feeling everything we see of them is from that point on, and is as part of their travels with him. So it might be that, like, where we saw a bit from Baby Yoda's perspective, we may see some from their perspective, but it's still within the realm of, like,
it's
the
still
sub.
connected somehow, right?
Sorry, what?
They're still connected somehow, right? They
Yes.
could still come.
Like, if they're not on the Razor Crest, they might be on another ship. Like, I think that's what's going to be the case. But I did notice that, and it did kind of strike me as a because I couldn't recall any. I don't know if there ever was a shot with just the two of them in the last season. That wasn't, like, clearly a part of, like, a larger sequence. And this one, it isn't as clear. But yeah, I don't think we're gonna veer away from the Mandalorian too much. Oh, and there's also one other exception to the we only see it from his perspective that I just thought of. We do get basically a little teaser on Tatooine with Mina Wen's character. And I think by that point the Mandalorian's already left the planet. But that's been it. It's always been like these little snippets. They've never been like a full thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, needless to
Super
say,
excited though.
yeah, needless to say, this podcast will probably become like all Star Wars all the time, with snippets of CD Projekt Red and Cyberpunk.
Become. You mean get back to?
Fair point. We're going back to our roots, people. Let's move on to some more TV stuff. So I know you haven't seen the new stuff from Star Trek Discovery,
I have not.
but you did finish. You finished season 2, right?
I'm pretty sure I did.
Um,
I don't remember exactly, but I'm like 99% sure I did.
I think the key way you will know whether or not you did it, time travel.
Yeah, okay, I did.
Okay. To kind of dive into a spoiler, if you're okay with this, about the setting for Star Trek, because I
Sure.
want to know
Yeah,
your
go for it.
thoughts. Because I get what they did from the perspective of as a creative, that it makes it more interesting. But as someone who, I'm not the biggest Trekkie, but when they do the time jump, we've gone essentially now, I want to say it's 800 years past the Next Generation era.
Okay.
And there is this sense that something happened with warp travel. Don't know what, but the Federation is essentially collapsed. I
Okay.
get that from a creative perspective because it makes it more interesting. But as a fan, one of the things I liked about the Federation and Star Trek was, unlike, say, something like Star Wars, Star Trek provided a fairly hopeful view of the future, but of our future, like Earth's future. And taking that away, I kind of didn't like. I just was like, I don't. It means that on some level, like that hopeful future is, you know, you can make comments about how and no future or nothing's ever going to be perfect or stable 100% of the time. But it was kind of just sad that
Right.
we would have that great future, but only for a period of time, rather than like humanity, yay us, go us. We solved our problems. So I don't know. How do you feel about what I've just told you?
I feel like there's things in this world that are sacred,
Yeah.
and I feel like there's things that like it doesn't feel like um it's there's things like I'm trying to think of like a good example, but like there's things where it the thing doesn't feel like the thing if something's not there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And like I feel like the Federation for Star Trek
Yeah.
is like one of those things.
Because, and
So
the
I
thing
don't
I
know.
find, because I really felt, especially with season 2 of Discovery, that they really nailed how to do Star Trek with modern TV sensibility. Like, I honest to God felt like they delivered in a way they really hadn't successful. I would say weren't as successful with season 1. Like, and a lot of that is because they really began to expand on the members of the crew, making it feel less like it's the Michael Burnham show. Because arguably, even though original series, you had like the triumvirate essentially of Spock, Kirk, and McCoy, but TNG was very much an ensemble. Deep Space Nine an ensemble. Like, you might have like the key figure who's going to be in every episode, and it's always going to be like the captain. But you would have these other ancillary characters on the ship who were also important and might be given an episode. And it felt like Discovery didn't really start to go into that until season 2. And so for me, like having them kind of figure out, oh, okay, we can do modern Star Trek, like a modern television show, but still maintain its Trekkiness. And then let's do this time jump, but we're going to get rid of we're going to kind of take away one of the core parts of Star Trek. It just was like, I hope I know
It's a
what you're
bold
doing.
move, Cotton.
Yeah, it's a bold move, Cotton. Let's see how this works out because they could very easily mess that up. Because you're right, there are some things that are sacred, and they just attacked one of them.
Yeah.
It's like never remake Casablanca. Don't take the Federation out of Star Trek. You do those two things, you're probably pretty good.
Yeah. Don't take the Jedi. Don't take the Jedi out of Star Wars. Oh wait.
You can. You just can't take the Force out of Star Wars.
This is true.
But yeah, it just was one of those things where that happened, and I just was like, I don't know how I feel about this. Like, if they stick the landing, awesome. Please stick the landing. I guess is my thing. Please stick the landing. But that's it. That's it for Star Trek for now. So stick the landing, fingers crossed. Let's move on to Quibi, because
It
I
lasted
think,
about as long as one of its shows.
yeah, I don't think we've actually really truly talked about Quibi, but of course we're gonna
I
make it.
knew this was gonna happen.
Yeah, like by the time we're like, okay, let's talk about Quibi, it's because it's dead, and it's exactly what you said. It's like, yeah, kind of saw this happening. Like,
As someone that worked on a Go 90 show, I knew this was gonna happen.
uh, like I saw something on, because someone posted about this on r/Los Angeles on Reddit, and someone made a comment, and I think this was like the perfect Quibi story. Was they're like, yeah, I worked as a bartender at the place where they held their holiday party, and I asked him, so what's Quibi? And the guy from Quibi goes, oh, it's like Netflix but for your phone. And he's like, I asked him, I'm like, but I already have Netflix on my phone, and the guy didn't have a response.
Oh
like,
boy.
It's like, yeah, that's Quibi. Where yeah, I remember even seeing like ads for shows. I'm like, oh, this seems kind of interesting. And then they're like, coming to Quibi, and I'd be like, not interested anymore. Like it just, there's so much about it as a platform where it's like, I could see how a boardroom thinks this is a great idea. Like we're gonna shoot a show, but we're gonna shoot it in a way where you can watch it in either 16:9 or 9:16 because those kids with those vertical videos, and it's just like
reinventing TV is a lofty goal.
Yeah.
And people have tried, and it has never worked.
And to be totally honest, I'm going to rotate my phone. I could do that for my 10-minute video. Like,
yeah.
Really, it's just like,
it's just not a good idea.
It's just not a good idea. It's like, I don't know, it just, they never sold the pitch to anyone. But investors, apparently. Because they raised, like, what, $2 billion in funding?
They got a lot of money.
Yeah. And
they stole a lot of money from rich people.
I think the best, like, my whole thing where I see a show, be like, well, that seems interesting, and then I'd see it was on Quibi, and then be like, Quibi, a couple of months ago, you could get Quibi for free through T-Mobile. I have T-Mobile. I didn't even want to go through the effort of linking my account to get Quibi for free because I just like was like, there's nothing there that's worth it. Like, it's not worth the 10 minutes it would take me to link.
Again, as someone that worked on a Go 90 show, these don't work.
But yeah, James, you said you had heard something about Quibi too?
Oh yeah, just from someone who worked there, past tense now. Apparently it was sort of like their plan was, oh, we'll keep working on the show until early next year. And then it was just like, hey, Friday, that's the last day.
Oh, wow.
We're shutting it all down. So like there's like episodes that are halfway through edit that are just going to sit there and rot. I mean, I guess Quibi, it's like the good thing is that Quibi doesn't own any licenses, or at least they don't own a lot. I feel like wasn't part of their deal like, hey, creators, you still own the rights. We just are like buying the distribution rights for 2 years from you. So like in a couple of years, these Quibi shows will end up on Netflix, probably.
Oh God. Well, that also explains, because one of the things I heard from people when like reviews for Quibi were first coming out, a lot of people were talking about how some shows on Quibi had an obviously shot in a way where they just did not care about the 9:16 aspect ratio. Or they were shot in a way where it was obviously we're trying to hit that ratio and it just messed up. It either looked wrong on one aspect ratio or wrong in the other aspect ratio. To where
that's
their whole core concept was just undoing the ability to actually...
Well, think about how hard it is to figure out how to shoot a show that works in both.
Well, hell, look at the trouble people had having to shoot 4x3 safe. It was a pain in the ass. Like 9x16 is even worse.
Like at least 4x3 and 16x9 are both wider than they are tall.
Yeah.
So you can just kind of crop off the longer edge. But yeah.
Yeah. 9x16 just sounds like a pain in the ass to try to shoot a show in.
And like for like you're shooting these shows with like all you have are people who have worked on shows before. And so they're all used to this wider than tall frame for every video that's ever been made in the last 10 years, except maybe Square, but it's just probably like the crews producing these probably are also not super familiar with like, what's the best way to do this?
Well, the other thing too is like vertical video isn't necessarily the best format if you're going to have more than one person in a shot. Like, if you needed 2 people in a shot in 9x16, but you also needed to shoot it where it was 16x9 safe, you're basically shooting like Lawrence of Arabia style landscape with like 2 people in like the middle. Just like, it's... Yeah,
I'm imagining lots of pan and scan, which is not like the worst thing in the world, just to have like a in-post camera move, but... yeah, it seems like getting a vertical video distribution platform is not something that I don't think anyone was asking for, right?
No
one's like, oh, my phone, but my wrist, twisting it so hard. Ugh.
Yeah, I honestly, it's like my thing. If I'm watching YouTube on my phone, I'm gonna rotate my phone. It's just like...
But even then, even if you don't rotate your phone, it still shows in 16x9.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
On YouTube, you can also just upload any aspect ratio you want, and it will just display it natively.
Yeah.
On whatever, so it's like, if I upload 4x3 content, it'll look really good on my old iPad, because it's like, that's its aspect ratio. But
I just got a great idea, guys.
Okay.
I just got a genius idea. You ready?
Shoot.
Do you ever watch Clarissa Explains It All?
Yes.
Okay. So Clarissa, for anyone who didn't watch Clarissa, it was like a teen sitcom, pretty much.
Now this was Melissa Joan Hart Sabrina, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So she would go through her everyday life, and then at the end of the day, or like throughout the show, she'd have these vlogs. Like before vlogs were a thing, she would have vlogs to the camera, right? So guys, we shoot this show. It's like Clarissa. It's a regular sitcom, 16x9. She goes through a day, and then at the end, like in segments of the show, you have to rotate your phone because she starts filming vlogs. Like live blogs that you have to watch alongside her, but it turns into a live stream. And so you have to flip and rotate your phone to 9x16 to follow along with the show.
As someone who's lazy, I probably wouldn't rotate my phone. So if you would want to do that, you would have to like make it be like upside down. So it's like you actually have to physically rotate the phone for it to be right side up.
Yeah, and then when the show goes back to sitcom mode, then you have to flip your phone back over.
As long as there's got to be the graphics on screen that are like, flip your phone when you see the little like arrows. Remember, this is the proper way to watch this. Put on 3D goggles now.
We created like, you know how on old books on tape where it's like, now on side B, we're basically doing that but with video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the way to keep the audience engaged. Are you paying attention? Are you flipping your phone?
Are you sure you're watching? Flip now.
And then all the creators, they're going to have these like analytic metrics where it's like, ooh, your flip to flip ratio is only 30%, which means that your audience is not engaged and not interested in getting the full 9x16 experience. You need to make your content gooder. So it's more vertical.
Or we're going to cancel you. Yeah. Your rotate metrics are low.
Dude, I'm telling you, this is a genius idea. We should be executives, guys.
Yeah.
We should work
Give
on
us your
TV.
billions of dollars that you clearly were going to give to Quibi.
Yeah, dude.
Um,
Quibi, I figure out a way to save your business. Don't go bankrupt yet.
I have
I'm
it.
sure we can buy it for like $5.
One last try. Come on, guys. Do this.
Yeah. We're angel investors. We'll give you $5 for the rights to Quibi. My God. I now want to make that, like, not as an actual series, but I want to make a video that does that exact thing now just for the, like, the joke of it.
You have to turn your phone.
That would be actually pretty fun. Like shoot it like an Apple ad and be like, now you get the full rotation experience. Now introducing diagonal video where you have to hold the phone not quite horizontal and not quite vertical.
Oh my
but
God.
hold it
Like,
diagonally for
like you, yeah.
the perfect content. Like some show like it's like shot like an MC Escher painting where it's just like, what is the right way to look at this?
What if it's like that statue in front of CSUN or that sign in front of CSUN where every angle you look at it, it says CSUN, but it's different? What if we shot a show like that where no matter what angle you looked at it, it was a different picture?
Oh, man.
Yeah, it's like if you're looking for like a horror film, turn it vertical.
Honestly, that would be actually kind of cool if rotating your phone would change the angle on a shot.
Or what if it was like a choose your own adventure, but
Yeah.
like you tip the phone to kind of be like, go left, go right. No, don't go in there.
Yeah. That would actually be kind of cool.
Dude, what if you're like, what's happening in this image? What's happening in this video? Am I walking towards you? Are you walking towards me? Depending on which way you spin your phone. It's both.
Spin now. Oh, God.
But like it has to cut away to like the movie phone announcer voice. So it's like you're in this drama. Which one do you want Dolores to do next? Do you want her to not jump off the bridge, or do you want her to jump off the bridge? Tip your phone now.
It's like the thing in Futurama where it's like, do you want Calculon to stay and do the paperwork or go to like the action sequence?
Yeah.
And Fry chooses action sequence and it was like, you selected
Paperwork.
does his paperwork. It's like, no, I didn't. I'm most certain that you did. Like, it's just... That could be fun.
So good.
The future is yesterday. Right, well, Quibi, if you need ideas and are willing to sell us the rights to your product, give us a call. We definitely have some ideas. All right, let's move on to our final topic. I feel like this is just another example of where it just is like the dominoes are starting to fall. Mulan, of course, did its release to Disney Plus. The rumor going around, and MGM has said, already officially said, that it is not looking to sell No Time to Die at the moment. But the story going around is that they did approach Netflix and Apple and others looking to see how much they could get for streaming No Time to Die.
They approached Quibi, and Quibi said only if we can show it in 9:16.
Oh God! But apparently the bid it's unclear if this was the bid offered or it was the bid they were looking for. But the number had been $600 million.
Yeah.
For streaming rights to No Time to Die. And I'm wondering if we're going to start actually, if this is just how it's going to be. Are we going to see a bunch of films that were supposed to come out, even blockbusters, start to hit streaming? Is this going to just be the thing?
To me, the tipping point is Black Widow.
Yeah.
To me, if Black Widow does it, then the floodgates open.
Yeah. Because if Disney pulls the big Marvel film,
Yeah. To
Like,
me, because like it's been this way for years now, but like to me, the Marvel film sets the market and is like is is the must see, like, go to film experience movie almost for the last decade now, which is crazy
yeah,
to think about. And the the thing is that Disney it's the easiest one for Disney to put out there because they have their own streaming service. They own the rights to everything. Like, it's easy for them to just go, yeah, cool, it's on there. There's no deals that need to be made.
yeah,
So if they can do that with a movie that big, uh, it opens the floodgates for everyone else to try to make deals and try to get this going.
yeah. Because now it's like, how soon until Tenet's on HBO Max?
Right.
Um,
I think Tenet flopping scared everyone.
Tenet flopping did scare everyone, and it was one of those, like, it did really bad. As much as Warner Brothers tried to like not put out any numbers, like reporting had been saying it did under 30 million opening weekend, which is not great. um it's not like horrible, but not what you would want for a film like Tenet. And then it just like trickled down into nothing. Because the moment after Tenet came out, Wonder Woman was pushed. So you knew Warner Brothers saw info and went, oh God, we can't do it. And then No Time to Die got pushed to next year. It's just like the moment Tenet did not save the theater, it was like all the studios just were like, let's shove everything a few more months. But I think you're right. I think Black Widow, if we got an announcement that it's coming to Disney Plus, I think you're right. I think the floodgates will open. And we'll go to my theme that James and I talked about last broadcast, where I think we're going to see people start to invest a bit more into like their home theater experience in some ways. Just because now this is going to be it for the next 6 months, if not longer.
Yeah.
And that's definitely not a good thing for the exhibition side of the industry. But I don't, like, even if 6 months from now things have calmed down enough to where they felt like they could comfortably, safely, like truly, actually safely open a theater, I'm still not sure I'd go. And that's just the reality for everyone. So, but
Because like at this point, like everything that reopens has kind of a, like, there's like a aftertaste of desperation to it. Like it always feels sort of like we're doing this because we're legally allowed to, not because there's like any sort of demand or that we've actually taken your safety into, your safety is not the highest priority. It is
we're
not
losing
going
money.
bankrupt.
We need to try
Yeah.
to recoup it somehow.
And it's like, I can't say that, like, if I were running AMC, that was probably the only thing I would want to do because that's the
Yeah.
only thing that makes money for my company. But it's tricky.
So, yeah, I just thought it was interesting because that's a lot of money to throw around. Like 600 million is not chump change. The thing I saw that really made interest in me is that there were reports that MGM, because of the continual delays, it's cost MGM between 30 and 60 million. Because my honest guess is a lot of that is marketing spend. Because No Time to Die was supposed to come out back in April. And then it got pushed to what, November? And then it got pushed again to like April.
Yeah.
Like, they marketed April, they marketed fall. They're gonna have to market it again. Like, I think they were looking at it as is it gonna be better for us if we just sell it to, say, Apple? But the thing too is if they were asking 600 million, there's only really like none of the studios other than like I don't think even Disney could rationalize spending that on someone else's product.
No. Again, that's why I think the Black Widow is like going to be the tipping point
Yeah,
because they don't have to spend anything, and it's the easiest thing to put out.
yeah, but 600 million asking. There's really only two players where that's chump change, and that's Apple and Amazon. Netflix would
Yeah,
probably be willing to spend the money on it,
but it's a
but
huge gamble for
that's a
them.
huge gamble for them. Whereas Apple, that's what, 2 hours of iPhones?
Yeah. Hey man, they just put them out for sale. They got
Yeah, it's
excess
just
money right now.
because the thing too is how many people would be willing to either keep their temporary, like their free trial Apple TV Plus account, or would be willing to sign up for at least a month for No Time to Die. And for Apple, yeah, 600 million is a lot of money, but that's for them. It's why not? Why not take that gamble? Um. So, yeah, I remember seeing that and just being because I don't know if you noticed this because I don't know if you watched the announcement or had time to watch the announcement. There was a period, like a sequence in the iPhone 12 announcement where they played the Bond theme, and
Yeah,
the entire gag ran like a little too long, and it's just everyone's like,
I
I
mean,
remember watching and just being like, what the
it
hell?
was the reveal for the Mini where they
Yeah,
had the case, and she keeps opening the case, and there's smaller cases in there. I'm like, just get. I
just
understand what
we
you're
get
doing.
it. We know where we're going. Just get to the point. Yeah, I remember it running too long, and then the moment the rumor broke that Apple was in talks for Bond, everyone was like, "Wait, is that why they did the Bond theme?"
Yeah, was that like the was it like the,
Like,
oh this will work?
yeah, it just was
Was
like,
Daniel Craig supposed to be opening the case?
yeah,
That would have been so cool,
that would have
actually.
been. I remember there was some people joking. It's like, so I wonder if it wasn't the $600 million cost. It was the fact that Apple probably would have gone through and removed all the Sony phones
Yeah.
from the Bond movie. Because if there's any one film series that I think Sony has done product placement to an egregious level, it's the Bond franchise, where it's
Yeah,
just
it's
blatant.
Sony and Aston Martin.
Yeah, where it's just this blatant product placement. I can excuse the cars because there is a like Bond gadget aspect to the cars, but yeah, the Sony Ericsson phone. It's like, yeah, we know why you're showing the logo. We know why.
This is true.
So yeah, that was I saw people joking that the real like what would be the budget to replace all of the Sony phones with iPhones.
Jeez. Cost more than the 600,000 or six
Right.
hundred million.
But yeah, I think you're right. I think Black Widow's the canary in the coal mine.
Yeah.
So that does it for me. Unless there's something else you want to go over.
No, I'm good.
Yeah, well, in that case, let's call it a show. Please like, share, subscribe, click bells, do the things. Like us on Twitter. Follow us on places. I mean, I think everyone has their spiel. Rate us on iTunes. There's one too. There's one. Do those things. Because the algorithm dictates and we must deliver what the algorithm wants. As always, feel free to send us any notes to feedback@quality3.net. I did notice that Facebook was having issues with comments, so if you did comment on Facebook, sorry, I didn't see them. But otherwise, stay safe, wear your mask, don't forget to vote, and we will see you in 2 weeks.